Mm, thanks for going along on that ride. I, secrets. Can you keep a secret? Have you ever been asked that question? Have you ever been invited in like that? How did it feel getting asked that question? Oh, I don't believe in any devil, but I have to say it's the devil's question. Can you keep a secret? So much power and temptation. It's a chocolate cake just sitting there, and there's this lure not only to know what the secret is, but to be on the inside, to belong in a special way. And the net is right there too. The minute I've said yes to keeping the secret, I'm ensnared, caught in a web that will almost inevitably stretch my integrity till it snaps. Secrets. So I'm thinking about the stories we leave untold today and all the reasons that we stay silent. And what happens when those unspoken stories are told? What changes within us and in the world? That, I think, was the question that inspired this message. It was on a postcard, and it said this: share a secret. You are invited to anonymously contribute a secret to a group art project. Your secret can be a regret, fear, betrayal, desire, confession, or childhood humiliation. Reveal anything, as long as it is true and you've never shared it with anyone before. Frank Warren printed those words on 3,000 postcards and then distributed them widely. You might have heard of this guy. He handed them out at subway stations, left them in art galleries, and slipped them between pages of library books. And then in November 2004, secrets began to arrive in his mailbox. After several weeks, he stopped passing out postcards, but the secrets kept coming. Handmade postcards made out of cardboard and old photographs, out of wedding invitations and other personal items, artfully decorated. These postcards arrived from all over the world. And now, Post-Secret. Post-Secret is the largest advertisement-free blog in the world. The latest count of visitors to postsecret.com is well over 800 million. There are several Post-Secret books, an app, a touring show, a TED Talk. Frank Warren, who calls himself an accidental artist, he struck a nerve with this project. The postcards that people have sent to Frank range from hysterical to heartbreaking to stomach churning to soul nourishing. So I'm going to share a few of them with you. And again, in the vein of that song, edgier than what we talk about here some days, but far from the edgiest of the postcards you might find in the Post-Secret catalog. So just a moment while I get the technical side set up here to show them to you. Some of these postcards, they have a sort of, call it a cathartic righteousness to them. Let's see if this will work for us. There we go. I give decaf to customers who are rude to me, says a Starbucks employee on a postcard made out of an old Starbucks cup. I let my dog poop in the yards of people who don't shovel their sidewalk when it snows. I pick my nose while giving a massage. Some reveal broken social taboos, some that you might not want to be revealed. Or this person who shares, I hate having to pay attention to the type of wrapping paper I buy now that I have Jewish friends. Or others tell poignant truths about self, about family, about addiction, loss, mental health. I haven't told my family yet, but I'm not coming home for Christmas. I give up. It feels great. There are a million things I wish I had told you before you died. I'm sorry. I need to find a purpose in my life that demonstrates how I am not worthless. I can eat a dozen donuts in one sitting. Sometimes we put up walls, not to keep people out, but to see who cares enough to knock them down. I'll soon be 70. I never expected to have as many regrets as I do. Dear friend, I never told you, but I was on my way home to swallow all my medicines that day. You saw me at the bus stop and gave me a hug. Thank you. People also sometimes send in notes like, sometimes just the act of sharing a painful secret can relieve some of the pain. Or, dear Frank, so many of my secrets are there on the site without my even sending a card. Or, dear Frank, after I created my postcard, I didn't want to be the person with that secret any longer. I ripped up my postcard and I decided to start making some changes in my life. There are some, I'm a cat sometimes. This, I know some Catholics who became Unitarians thinking along those lines. Or this one, I want to be a Unitarian Universalist, but I don't know how God will take it. Oh, I just love that one. And many, of course, grapple with beautiful, silly, challenging, and deeply painful secrets around sexuality. I spread rumors about my gay classmate to see how people would react if they ever found out about me. I'm a lesbian, but I'd do Jack Bauer in a heartbeat. That's two secrets in one. And touching on the deepest, most painful transgressions, I apologized to you for saying what you did to me was rape, but it was rape, and I'm done apologizing. The other day, I realized I've raped myself over 22 times by saying yes when I really meant no. This is my apology to myself. I pulled a muscle in my neck while masturbating. I couldn't move my head for 3 days. I told my husband it was from moving furniture. And lately, of course, there have been some pandemic-themed secrets. 13 months into the pandemic, and I'm still sad no one invited me into their pod. Or this one, I don't want to take my mask off. You know, the painful secrets, whether they have to do with religion and belief or with self-image, with sex, with abuse, whatever they have as their content, the painful secrets all have a common thread. They shame. Frank Warren says in the introduction to the first of many Post-Secret books, sometimes when we believe that we are keeping a secret, that secret is actually keeping us. So what secrets can we share? Do we share? What secrets do we keep as our own? How do we know the difference? How do we navigate the territory between the life-giving secret of that special hidden garden and the life-alienating secrets that keep us bound up in shame and which stagnate social change? I turn to an image that Anne Lamott offers of that, another image of that secret garden. She says, every single one of us at birth is given an emotional acre, all of our own. You get one, your awful Uncle Phil gets one, I get one, Trisha Nixon gets one, everyone gets one. And as long as you don't hurt anyone, you really get to do with your acre as you please. You can plant fruit trees or flowers or alphabetized rows of vegetables or nothing at all. If you want your acre to look like a giant garage sale or an auto wrecking yard, that's what you get to do with it. There's a fence around your acre, though, with a gate. And if people keep coming onto your land and sliming it or trying to get you to do what they think is right, you get to ask them to leave. And they have to go, because this is your acre. So the secret garden, the emotional acre, and I think about the contrasting images of secrets from that story. On the one hand, the life-giving secret of the garden, a secret full of unknown possibilities and promises of splendor and beauty. Finding, searching, finding, and finally tending that secret garden, they bring Mary back to life. The secret garden, the emotional acre, the special and private place is shared then with Colin and finally brings another traumatized and grieving child back to life. And on the other hand, the secret room with the secret boy, the illness and the pain and the suffering that no one is to speak of, no one is to see, hidden in the far wing. This secret bears no fruit or flower, but requires servants to do its bidding. Two kinds of secrets. I think one way of talking about this distinction is between secrecy and privacy. Secrecy and privacy. I think sometimes these ideas get confused with one another. Just because I hold a piece of information private does not make it a secret, right? The confidences I hold as a minister when people share their stories with me are not secrets, but private. Well, on the other hand, when clergy who have withheld information about sexual misconduct, about their own or colleagues from congregations or authorities, they are keeping a damaging secret. My colleague, Reverend Tom Rhodes, has shared his exploration of the question, but where does privacy end and secrecy begin, he asks. There is a gray area between what is private and what is secret. A person's sexual history, for instance, is generally regarded as a private affair. But when that history involves the betrayal of a spouse or a sexually transmitted disease or sex with underage persons, it crosses the line into secrecy. Likewise, a person's health, he says, is generally considered a private concern. But if that person is running for public office, concealing health risks could rightly be seen as an inappropriate secret. So it's a gray area, not clear cut. What I've found most helpful is this. If I'm asking if I can talk about it, then I'm in the territory of dangerous secrets. But if instead I'm asking how can I talk about it? With whom can I talk about it? When can I talk about it? I'm asking the appropriate questions of privacy. And really, I think any secret we hold can benefit from these more nuanced questions. The question stops being whether this is something you can talk about or not, because if something is completely off limits, then it's a damaging secret. If you're holding it as, I can never talk about this with anyone, that's a harmful secret. I don't think there's ever a healthy secret in that way. It's the kind of secret referred to in 12-step groups when the wisdom is shared. You're only as sick as your secrets. So not if you can talk about, but how can you talk about it? Who can you talk about it with? When can you talk about it? These questions, they short circuit, I think, the shame current that secrets need to endure. The questions short circuit the shame current that secrets need to endure. They give permission to place the story outside of ourselves and give the lie to the belief that if I hold and acknowledge this truth outside of myself, I could not possibly belong. I would be outside the circle of love. It's not possible. It's not possible to be cast out of the greatest circle of love. For years now, we have been awakening to a mental health crisis in our country. We've been come a long way over the past couple of generations of mental health care treatment, but it's clear that the salvation by chemistry that we were promised beginning in the 1980s with the invention of Prozac has severe limitations, and that mental health is more complicated than isolating a handful of chemicals in the brain and pulling levers to increase or decrease them. And in our struggle to understand the root causes of mental illness, to treat and care for people who are struggling with their mental health, to hold them in the circle of belonging, the circle of love, we are seeing the consequences of this struggle to understand all around us, the vast array of addictions that we suffer from, the unreal statistics of how many people we incarcerate, prisons being by far our largest mental health institutions, the skyrocketing levels of depression and other disorders amongst teenagers. I don't think we're going to be able to understand and address the underlying social conditions that are creating this crisis until we strip the shame and stigma from talking about mental health issues. And the good news is this is starting to happen. And I hope that perhaps a silver lining of the pandemic is that we are finding a more widespread cultural vocabulary for discussing mental health. Nothing like isolation and disruption of familiar routine to put us in touch with the fragility of our emotional well-being. And we shared in the newsletter this week an opportunity through a member of our congregation, through David France, to get involved in supporting our community through a suicide prevention hotline. So talk to David if you're interested and might get involved in that meaningful work. Take those skills of phone calls that we worked so diligently at within our community this year and offer them beyond. I've talked with you some about my own journey with mental health, about being hospitalized as a teenager, about struggling with bouts of deep depression. There's dimensions of that story that I haven't found a way to publicly talk about yet, but I've started feeling called to figure out how to do that. So this is a teaser, I suppose, more to come on that in the coming weeks. But here's why it's important. Here's why it matters, not only in our personal lives, but in our lives together. I've shared this framework with you before, but I think it's a beautiful map of how social change happens. It's offered by the theologian Walter Brueggemann. We were talking about this at the last leaders meeting of the Marin Organizing Committee. Brueggemann writes in his book, Hope Within History, of the ways that the sacred stories of ancient Hebrew scripture offer a narrative that intentionally shatters all the old descriptions of reality and invites people into a different reality. And he carefully walks through the way that happens in the Exodus story. And then he says that it's actually a process throughout history that we do in community over and over again. He says there's 3 stages of faith development in this powerful transformation. The first is what he calls a critique of ideology, a critique of empire. He says that theology emerges from life and shapes behavior, that there is a relationship between human choices and religious ideas. So therefore, when religious ideas become oppressive, or any ideology that dominates a culture becomes oppressive, they must be critiqued. In order to free ourselves from oppression, these interpretations, this theology must be critiqued. And then the second stage is the public processing of pain. And this is why that short-circuiting the shame current is so important. Self-disclosure and storytelling, they break the silence around an unmentionable issue and point the way forward for others to do their own work of truth-telling and healing. And this sharing, this public sharing of private pain is necessary to arrive at the third stage of faith development, when the public outcry and processing of pain leads to the release of new social imagination. This outcry takes the lid off of our hope-filled imagination. So the critique of an oppressive theology, the public processing of pain, the release of new social imagination. Short-circuiting the shame current, airing in the open what has been held bound up within to release a new social imagination. I think about the shame that my grandmother carried her whole life as she refused to talk about the truth of my grandfather's sexuality. Most of you have heard me talk about his story as a gay Presbyterian minister here in San Anselmo, among other places. My grandfather's sexuality was a secret of the highest order. And the shame and institutionally enforced silence eventually enabled a man to murder him. A man I came to understand as I unpacked the story for myself, who deeply struggled with his own mental health, his own sexuality, who resides in a prison for the mentally ill to this day. My grandmother, unable to speak about the truth of her husband's life and death, but in the past 40 years since he was killed, so many others, so many people have spoken the truth about their lives, spoken the truth in public about their private pain, that a new social imagination was indeed released, and marriage equality is the law of the land. Protecting a family secret may be intended to be about saving someone from shame, but in fact, it ends up piling the shame even higher. And the public sharing of pain, the revelation of unspoken stories, is a necessity, both for individual healing and in the process of social transformation. In fact, one is not separate from the other. When I was first wrestling with all of this, I remember being struck to learn that secret, the word secret, is closely related to the word sacred. Both come from the root sekerne, which is to separate or to set apart, a secret, or that which is sacred. Like the garden, there do exist sacred secrets. Secrets that by being set apart become a blessing. These kind of secrets protect the soil that holds the tender seedlings of creativity from the stomping feet of unwanted opinions. These kind of secrets bring dignity to the spine and kindness to the eye, soft hint of a smile to the lips. And then there are secrets that serve only to ensnare and entrap. Secrets that clamp down on feeling and depress the bearer, that trade in shame and serve to feed and grow it. Secrets can take many forms, Frank Warren says. They can be shocking or silly or soulful. They can connect us with our deepest humanity or with people we'll never meet again. I believe that each of us has the ability to discover, share, and grow our own dark secrets into something meaningful and beautiful. Secrets can be walls or bridges. May each of us find ways to post our secrets, to let go, to trust that there is enough love in this world to hold our scariest truths and darkest thoughts, that even our most bitter pain or deepest shame can be held with compassion. May we cultivate our private acres. May we tend to the sacred garden, which is a joyful secret that brings us back to life. And when we are called upon, may we share that life-giving secret garden with another who needs it. Indeed, may we share it in the public square, that a new social imagination might be released. May it be so.